Hey there everyone, welcome back to another video, and today let's talk about 5 TypeScript utility types you might not know about. Let's get started. Alright, so in this video I'm going to talk about 5 TypeScript utility types that are incredibly useful but are rarely used. So let's have a scenario here. For example, this is some library code and they export a get user function which takes in a user ID which is of type ID. Now this type ID is either string or number, which again you notice it's not exported. So if this is your main code and let's say you import get user from this lib file or this library, you don't get access to this type. So let's say somewhere in the code base you want to use this type but you don't know what exactly it is, and this can change anytime whenever the library updates. So how do you get this parameters type? Because that's where it is used exactly. The library does not export it, it's only in the parameters. In that case, we can simply use the parameters utility type. So let's say I'm going to create another type which will be type user ID equals to parameters. Sorry, it's going to be parameters, and it will be taking this type of whatever function it is, which is get user. Now this is going to return to us a tuple, not an array, a tuple of all these arguments, which is user ID of type ID. All we want is this part over here, and this is basically like an array but a fixed array. So this inside of this array we can simply get index 0, and that way you get string or number. You can use it whenever you want. Alright, that's the parameters type. But what if you want to get the return type of this function? This function returns you a promise of an object or null or undefined. But what if you want this exact part, which is basically what the user structure will be, which is nowhere in this code? In that case, you can again use the return type utility type. So let's create a type called user, and that will be equal to the return type of the type of get user. Now that's the return type. So you get the type of user, whatever the get user returns. Now let's say you want to use this type in an object. Now if you were to go ahead and create an object and look for IntelliSense, all you get this catch finally and then. Well, that's because this function returns a promise because it's an async function. So it will return a promise. Hence return type gives us the promise return type. Now we do not want to use promise in this case. So all we can do is we can nest it inside of the awaited utility type, which is again provided by TypeScript out of the box. So now this is an object or null or undefined. And now you get the IntelliSense as expected. These are the 3 TypeScript utilities. But what if you don't want the null and undefined? What if you are accepting this user somewhere in the code base and you don't want it to be null or undefined? You want to make it required. So all we need to do is strip out these 2 types, and we can do that with the built-in non-nullable utility type from TypeScript. All it does is that it removes the undefined and null from a type. So if there is a union type of null and undefined, it will basically remove those, exclude those, and it will return you back the type which does not include null and undefined. So this is a clean user object now. Now these were the 4 utility types. Now let's talk about the final one, which does not include any of this. So let's just forget about all that. So let's say you have this object called scores. It includes the name of the person and what the scores were inside of an array. And this will be an array of numbers. And this type is inferred very simply. You just get John number array, Jane number array. What if you want to make this a type but don't want to make an interface or type? You just want this object, that's all. What you can do is you can use the built-in record utility type, and inside of here you can first of all tell TypeScript what will be the key of this object. So the key in here is John Jane, which is simply string. Even if you wrap it inside of quotes, it does not matter. So the key here is going to be of type string, and what will be the value, which is this and this. We know it's going to be number array, so we just give it an array of numbers. And let's close this generic out. Now this is fully type safe. If I were to go ahead and add Jake, which will have a score of 10, TypeScript is going to yell at us type number is not assignable to number array. And if we wrap it inside of an array, but we then add a string, which again is string is not assignable to type number. That way you can make your code type safe even without creating another type or an interface. These were the 5 TypeScript utility types that are rarely used but incredibly useful. I hope this video helped you out. Comment down your favorite utility type and you can read about more utility types on this page that I'll leave the link in the description below. There are a lot of utility types that you can use inside of TypeScript that make your life a lot easier. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.